Michael Harrison adjusted his tie nervously as he walked into the Grandview restaurant. At 42, the CEO of Harrison Industries had built an empire, but tonight he felt like a schoolboy on his first date. His college friend, Tom, had insisted on setting him up with someone perfect, a corporate lawyer with impressive credentials. Michael was a tall man with kind eyes and gentle features that belied his powerful position. 5 years ago, his wife had passed away from cancer, leaving him to raise their daughter Emma alone. The little girl with honey-colored hair and bright eyes was his entire world. As he approached the hostess stand, Michael's attention was drawn to a young woman seated alone at a corner table. She wore a simple cream-colored blazer over a gray dress. Nothing fancy, but there was something luminous about her. Her blonde hair was woven into a loose braid, and she held herself with quiet dignity, despite the obvious nervousness in her eyes. She looked up, and their gazes met. For a moment, time seemed to pause. "Sir, table for two?" the hostess asked. Michael blinked, shaking himself from the trance. "Yes, I'm meeting someone. Reservation under Harrison." But even as he was led to his table across the room, he found himself glancing back at the woman. She was checking her phone, biting her lip anxiously. Something about her vulnerability touched him deeply. His actual date arrived 15 minutes later, perfectly polished, supremely confident, and immediately launching into talk about mergers and acquisitions. Michael tried to focus, but his eyes kept drifting to the corner table. The blonde woman was still alone. 45 minutes had passed. She ordered only water and bread, her discomfort growing more visible with each passing moment. When the waiter approached with a concerned look, Michael could see her shaking her head, clearly embarrassed. "Excuse me for just a moment," Michael said to his date, rising before he could second-guess himself. He walked over to the corner table. "I'm terribly sorry to intrude," he said gently, "but I noticed you've been waiting quite a while. Is everything all right?" The young woman looked up, her blue eyes glistening with unshed tears. I was supposed to meet someone. A friend set it up. But I think—" her voice broke slightly. "I think he saw me and left." Michael's heart clenched. "Then he's a fool," he said simply. "I'm Michael. Would you allow me to keep you company? I'm in a similar situation over there, a blind date that isn't quite working out." A small, surprised smile crossed her face. "I'm Sarah, and—" "That's very kind, but you don't have to—" "I'd like to," Michael interrupted softly. "Very much." And so Sarah Bennett, a 28-year-old bookstore clerk who'd been working 2 jobs to support her ailing grandmother, found herself sharing a table with one of the city's most successful businessmen. Though she didn't know who he was, they talked as if they'd known each other for years. Sarah spoke about the poetry section being her favorite place in the bookstore, how she loved recommending just the right book to customers. Michael shared stories about Emma, his voice full of love and occasional worry about raising a daughter alone. "She's 5 now," he said, pulling out his phone to show a photo. "Smart as a whip and twice as stubborn. Gets that from her mother." "She's beautiful," Sarah said, genuine warmth in her voice. "You can see the love in her eyes." "That comes from you." 3 hours passed like minutes. When the check came, Sarah reached for her small purse, but Michael gently stopped her. "Please, this evening has been a gift." As they stood to leave, Sarah hesitated. "Michael, I should tell you. I don't have much. I work at Riverside Books and I take care of my grandmother. I just don't want you to think—" "Sarah," he said, his voice tender. "The only thing I think is that I'd very much like to see you again. If you'd allow me that honor." She smiled then, truly smiled, and it was like sunrise breaking through clouds. Over the following weeks, they met for coffee, walks in the park, quiet dinners. Michael never mentioned his company, content to be simply Michael. Not the CEO, not the wealthy widower. Just a man who loved his daughter and was falling deeply for a woman who read poetry to her grandmother each night. Emma met Sarah on their 4th date, a Sunday afternoon at the zoo. The little girl took to Sarah immediately, holding her hand as they looked at the elephants. "Do you think you could read to me sometime?" Emma asked shyly. "Daddy tries, but he does funny voices." Sarah laughed, the sound like music. "I would love that. And I happen to think funny voices make stories better. Michael watched them together, this precious child and this remarkable woman, and felt something he hadn't felt in 5 years, complete hope. It was Emma who finally spilled the secret. "Sarah, when you and Daddy get married, can we live in our big house? It has lots of rooms for books." Sarah looked confused. "Big house?" Michael sighed, knowing the moment had come. "Sarah, there's something I should have told you. I'm the CEO of Harrison Industries. I have considerable means, but I didn't tell you because what we have, it's real. It has nothing to do with money or status." He held his breath, afraid he'd see disappointment or anger. Instead, Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "You thought I might treat you differently," she whispered, "because of what you have, instead of who you are." "Yes," he admitted. She reached across the table and took his hand. "Michael Harrison, I fell in love with a kind man who talks about his daughter with stars in his eyes. A man who rescued a stranger in a restaurant because he couldn't bear to see her hurt. That's who you are. Everything else is just decoration." That evening, as Sarah read bedtime stories to Emma, using all the funny voices, Michael stood in the doorway watching. Life had given him loss and pain, but it had also given him this: love, a second time around, built on nothing but truth and kindness. "Daddy?" Emma called out. "Are you going to marry Sarah?" Both adults blushed. "Emma!" Michael laughed, but Sarah smiled, meeting his eyes. "That sounds like a question worth considering," she said softly. And it was. 6 months later, in a small ceremony with Emma as flower girl and Sarah's grandmother in the front row, Michael and Sarah promised forever to each other. Love, they learned, doesn't care about bank accounts or status. It only asks for open hearts and the courage to see the beauty in another soul. Sometimes the best things in life come from the simplest acts of kindness, like rescuing a stranger at a restaurant and